How can female entrepreneurs sell authentically, overcome sales anxiety, and stand out in a crowded marketplace? Stay tuned because you're going to find out all about that and so much more. Welcome back to the show. If you're new here, I'm Jen Vazquez. I help hyper-busy female service providers simplify their marketing using Pinterest so that they can book more clients, grow their income, and make a bigger impact. And on this podcast, you will also find expert interviews and actionable tips. If that sounds like your jam, don't forget to hit subscribe or check us out on YouTube. Today, I'm so excited to be talking with Andee Hart of She Sells Differently. Andee is an energetic entrepreneur, sales strategist, and mentor with a passion for empowering women in business. She is the host of the podcast She Sells Differently, which focuses on authentic selling and business growth. So you can see why I have her on this podcast. Andee's entrepreneurial journey began as a side hustle with her candle company, Heart Designs Co., which grew into a thriving wholesale and retail business. Drawing on her experience as a Fortune 500 sales executive, Andee uses her unique strategies to help women overcome sales anxiety, master pricing psychology, and thrive in a competitive market, all with your integrity and grace. Welcome, Andee.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's dive in a little bit. What inspired you to transition from Fortune 500 career to full-time entrepreneurship with Heart Design Co.?
Yes. And I see so many of us that have that corporate background. And I'm so thankful for that because it taught me so much. But entrepreneurship is just in my blood. And I think if you have that, then you just can't let it go. You can't let it go. I've always had that dream. I actually had a dream to start a dance studio in college, which is such a far cry from what I do now. But the Lord has different plans for me and for all of us. And so I had a dream to start a dance studio in college. And I had a professor that I am still good friends with today. And Dell Technologies, it was Dell Computer at the time, they were interviewing us at my university. They needed sales reps. And so they said, we'll interview any of you guys that want to interview today. And she was like, you're going to interview and you're going to thank me later. I just had dinner with her a few months ago and we were laughing because I was like, thank you.
It only took how many years?
Right. I thought, I'm going to do this job for a year or two, then go start my dance studio. But here's the thing, Jen, I figured out I love sales. I love sales. Sales is not something to be scared of, but I loved it when you have a product that you believe in, that you're passionate about, that serves others well, then you owe it to people to share about it. And you can do that in a way that's not icky, that's not uncomfortable. And I realized that I loved it and I was good at it. I wasn't always good at it. I had to learn that. But through 17 years of that, I finally learned I want to take those skills that I've learned and I want to serve women that have not learned how to share their beautiful products or their services with the world. And I want to help them do that because I don't want them to hide the great things and the great gifts that the Lord has given them. So I wanted to step away from the corporate world, but still take the gifts that I had learned and experienced there and then help women entrepreneurs. And I say women entrepreneurs, but I have a lot of men that have joined my programs and my coaching too. And so it is just a gift to be able to wake up every morning and do what I love and, use the skills that I've been given. And so that is really what has inspired me, is to be able to help others.
Yeah. I used to tell my team, do you believe in what you do, right? Like, do you believe, because I was in recruiting, do you believe that you can place a person that can actually help this company accomplish its business goals? And they would be like, yeah, of course. I'm like, then don't be selfish. You should be sharing
Yes.
it with everybody. Like, it's a big mindset shift. You're not
Absolutely.
trying to help people, you're trying to serve people with an option that you truly believe will help them.
Yes.
So don't be selfish, people.
Don't be
Share.
selfish. That is a great mindset shift. And I put it a little bit differently but it is the same concept that when you have a gift, you don't want to hold that in. So, yeah,
Mm-mm.
I love it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's dive into the meat and potatoes. Can you share some of the most common sales mistakes that you find that female entrepreneurs make, and how can they address them?
Yes.
How can they turn those mistakes into wins?
Oh, Jen, I could talk about this all day long because here's the reality. Whether you are in a formal sales role or not with a quota or what have you, the reality is you're selling every day. You're selling something every day. We often just undervalue. Here's the first thing, the first mistake I see made. We undervalue our worth. We all have a gift and we all have value, something that we bring to the table, and we undervalue our worth. And I hesitate to put a gender stereotype on this, but I see this more often in women than I do
Mhm.
in men. And I struggle with this too. So I'm putting myself in the same boat here. I think naturally we are helpers and we want to serve. It's not sometimes that we will undervalue, but we are sometimes just scared that other people think that we're not worth what we are. And that really is
They kind of
undervaluing.
make up a you kind of make up a story in your head,
Right.
right? And talk yourself out of a lot of things.
Well, and we also want to give. We want to help. But at the same time, that's not helping yourself either. And I had a mentor one time say, I'm probably going to not articulate this well, but be a gracious receiver by allowing someone to purchase what you have to give, right? By allowing them to invest in you. And so I often see women, they will not put a price tag on their products or their services of what it is truly worth. And that is one of the biggest mistakes that I see. A consumer mindset often associates a low price tag with a low value. And so there's just a trickle down effect that that can have when we undervalue our worth. So that's the first one. The second one is something I like to call the field of dreams mindset. I don't know if anyone else has watched that movie, Field of Dreams, but it's the quote, if you build it, they will come. I see this all the time. I coach a lot of candle makers simply because I started a candle company. And so I see candle makers or product makers, whether it's jewelry or art or whatever it is, and they think, I'm going to build a website, I'm going to put my products out there, and they're going to come and buy it. That is not the way that e commerce and sales works. You have to have a sales and a marketing strategy. And that's where we come in. Having that field of dreams mindset, if you build it, you make it, you create it, they will come, is not the way that a business works. And so sometimes you can put a sales strategy out there and you have to learn to pivot and to refine that. And that's the fun of it too. That's the fun and that's the art of sales and marketing is to learn and constantly refine what works, but to also be consistent and not give up. So that,
Be consistent and not give up.
yes,
That right there is the best advice you're going to hear for a variety of topics when it comes to marketing.
yes.
Oh, I love it.
Just recapping those of undervaluing your worth and then just having that field of dreams mindset, the two big mistakes. Yeah.
Yes. How can business owners balance creativity and strategy when developing a sales and marketing plan?
Yeah, I love this one because creativity is so important and it really does use both sides of your brain when you're thinking the creative side and then kind of, the business side and the strategy side. And so one thing I would say is to challenge the norm. I think often we look at what everyone else is doing and we think, well, they're successful. I should just follow in their footsteps. But this is where you want to get outside and think outside the box. It doesn't mean that you can't take some clues or some things that they're doing and iterate on things that are successful, but challenge the norm. Think outside the box and get creative, but also be strategic in your creative approach. So that could look like implementing a new marketing strategy that is brand new for you, but looking at the data and seeing, is this marketing strategy bringing the right return on investment and sales conversion that we want? And if our approach is not, then that's okay. Having grace for yourself, because we've all tried things that don't work. But how can we tweak that approach and get creative and iterate on that approach and change it up to make it more effective for next time? So, really having that balance of creativity, but really looking at the data to make it strategic as well.
And I would imagine that that's probably under one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to sales and marketing, because I see it all the time with clients or people that come to me, that you don't know something's working unless you're measuring it. Like,
Hmm.
so many times people, like, they have this gut instinct, which I'm not saying is a problem, but I'm just saying you want to confirm your gut instinct with the data to make
Yes.
sure you're not spending time doing the things that aren't going to be the biggest bang for your buck, for your time buck.
Yes. So often we go off of our feelings, and our feelings are really misleading. Actually, most of the time, our feelings are misleading. If you're not making data driven decisions for your business and you are just making feeling decisions, then that's where you start to make decisions that are bad for you financially, that are bad for you strategically. And then what happens is that when you lay in bed at night, because it happens to all of us as entrepreneurs, you're like, what am I doing? Like, your mindset starts to say, I'm frustrated. I'm not making any progress. But when you have the data doesn't lie, right? And so that's where it really is an art and a science, where you do have those gut instincts of the creativity, but then you measure it with the data. And that's where you really have the balance of the creativity and the beauty of coming up with new ideas to reach your target audience, but you're really measuring it and making sure that it is converting well and pivoting where you need to.
And I know that it's a balance. So I had a client who loves TikTok and loves creating content, but her clients were coming from Facebook. And now, this is not the case for everyone all the time, but there is a little bit of what you enjoy, but
Mm-hmm.
also what is driving your business.
Right.
Are you working closest to the dollar? That you hear a lot in sales, right? You
Right.
don't want to be spending time over here when the money is over here. And it doesn't mean you can't be on TikTok. Like, I wasn't telling her to stop TikTok, but to maybe increase the time for her business on Facebook, where all of her clients were coming from.
And that's a great example of, she may not have realized that if she didn't have a tool in her business to measure that. Because a lot of times we don't. We don't know where our clients are coming from. And so having tools in our business to measure that, I love using LinkedIn, but my clients are not coming from that. I implemented a step in my business so that I could understand whether it is getting that from your clients and asking that question, or it's implementing the technology on the back end so that you can track that data from like Google Analytics or Facebook Pixels, if you have that technology, to understand where your sales are coming from, where your audience is coming from. You can't be everywhere and be very effective. And I realized that Facebook was a really effective marketing tool for me. And so,
Yeah.
why am I spending so much time on LinkedIn when so many of my ideal clients are on Facebook? That's where I really need to be spending my time. So it's really the same thing. I would have never really known that had I just been relying on what I love and my feelings.
Yeah. And I would love to dive into, because in 2021, I went back into 2020 to sort of verify and do some research on my clients. And all of the numbers said that, because of course I have a form on my website, it asks where they found me, all the things that you think is the right thing to do. And it was about 80% of people were coming to me from Instagram. So I, from my sales experience, data only also isn't always the best. You need to be asking these questions of your client. So I did this, I now do it all the time, but I went back and I asked, you said that you found me on, Instagram. I know it was a long time ago, but did you get referred to me? Was a hashtag, which is now my second clarifying question that I encourage everyone to do in your business, because people tell you where they were when they made the decision to connect with you. So you say, how did you find me? And what you're asking is, what part of my marketing is working?
Right.
And what they hear is, where were you when you found me or when you decided to talk to me? And so by asking that second clarifying question of, okay, great, were you referred to me? Because I'd love to thank that person. Or, did you use hashtags to find me? Because of course we want to know what those hashtags are and use more of those. So talk to me a little bit about clarifying questions and talking with your clients. That's sort of a piece of the sales process that so many people sort of rush through.
Yes. So one of the tools that I use for that, and I do this in a way that actually accomplishes several things for me. So I will take that even a little bit of a step further in my nurture sequence for email. I love email list because I want to have control over my followers. I love to segment that, and it is an honor for me if they join my email list. I don't take that lightly because, I'm in their inbox, right? And I want to provide value. And so, one of the things in my nurture sequence, not only do I ask that initial question, but I will even take it a step further and say, why did you, if they make a purchase, so this is a post purchase nurture sequence, why did you make the decision to invest in this program or this course? What
Ah,
what tipped
that is
you
the
over the
best
edge?
marketing data ever for marketing in the future. Oh, that's
And they're
beautiful. I do the
so
same thing.
willing.
It's so good.
Yeah, they're so willing to give that information, but that helps me with my sales copy. I take
Yes, using those
Yes.
words. I know it's so
Yes.
good.
And I actually learned this from a copywriter. You can take all of that aggregate data into like a chat GPT prompt and it will spit out like the top like two or three things why your purchasers converted, like what tipped them over the edge. And so that's so important to get that information. But here's another thing, when those in that post purchase nurture sequence, when they respond, anytime someone clicks or interacts in your email marketing, that helps your engagement or you know,
Open rates,
your open
everything.
rates. And so, Google sees that. That's just helpful. I do that in just my regular nurture sequence as well. I want my audience to engage with me. I want them to click. I want them to see the value and engage with my content. That is just some of the sales and the marketing tools that I use. Not only am I providing value, I'm getting a lot of value from my audience and I'm able to use it to continually refine my content to make it even better. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
multifaceted approach.
And what I found from all this research was that only 20% of people actually found me from Instagram. Here I was investing the majority of my marketing time in Instagram.
Oh,
And it was actually Pinterest, which is my business. It
yeah.
was actually Pinterest that and or a blog that people first found, and then they stalked me on Instagram. Some of my clients didn't even follow me. They were just stalking me and then they connected with me. So
Wow.
they may not even be followers on Instagram, but they're watching what you do, what you say, how you say it, how you show up online, the educational content that
Yes.
you give, the personality that you give. I had one client that said, I literally reached out to you because you shared a post with your chocolate lab and I love chocolate labs. And so I just kept following you on social media to see that lab. And then what you were saying is exactly what I needed. Like, that's
Isn't that amazing?
wild. Yes.
And it's
Yes.
it's crazy to me how many times people, like, I will connect with people and they have now purchased a course or joined my membership or something. And they're like, I've been listening to your podcast for so long now. And it's like, oh, wow, And I love that. I love that. And you don't know who is following you or who is listening in and who is finding value in what you're bringing to the table. And there could be thousands, but they may just not be ready, or the timing may not be right for them to invest in your products yet. But
Exactly.
that's why it's so important to be consistent.
Totally agree with you. Okay, let's dive into the one that makes everyone want to sweat, right? Pricing. It could
Ah.
feel really tricky. How do you recommend business owners set their pricing with confidence, right?
Yes. And this is an ongoing thing for all of us, right? I have a new service offering that I am walking through this myself right now. And so, one thing that I will always say is know your numbers. So, we talked about the data earlier. So, it's not just about what feels right. You have to know your numbers. So, I coach product makers primarily. So, they are selling their products. So, I always stress you need to know your production cost, you need to know your cost of goods down to the penny. So everything that is going in to your product. And I show them exactly how to do that. But then we talk about labor cost, we talk about shipping cost. And so if you're a service provider, that is very similar in that if you are making, you're leaving your corporate job, how much are you being paid to do that role by your company? Now transition that. How much should you be paying yourself to do this job as being self-employed, right? So knowing your numbers is really the first. We're not just throwing spaghetti against a wall and charging what feels right. The second part of that is to do market research. Now, I always put a caveat there that you do not necessarily need to charge exactly what the market or what the next person is charging. Because if we did that, or if the candle makers that I coach charged exactly what everyone else is being charged, they would probably be leaving a lot of profit on the table because a lot of candle makers will once again undervalue their product. But it is important to do market research because if everyone is charging $100 for a specific item and you're charging 1,000, you're out of touch with reality, right? And so
Yes.
you want to be within the market value and be realistic with your pricing, but you also want to have a happy medium and balance with what you bring to the table and know your unique value proposition and what is unique about you compared to the market, which is important in how you differentiate your price compared to the market too. So,
Exactly. And one way to make more money in general in your business is to lessen the costs, right? We can't predict, know, or be sure that a client is going to work with us, but we can be sure about how much we're spending in our business. So I always recommend people, like, every 6 months really look through all of those automated costs. And if you only use a program once in that 6 months, do you really need to be spending that? Because that's going to put more money in your pocket as well.
oh yeah, your expenses, the cost of what it takes to do business, that is so important. That's one of the quickest ways, yes, to
Mhm.
increase your profitability. And to your point, a lot of times we do that once, we calculate that once, and then we move on. And how many times do prices go up, especially for product makers? Prices go up a lot.
When the gas prices went up, all of everything, we needed to transition that cost off to our clients because otherwise we're getting less and less and less of that pie.
Or if you're a service provider or a product maker, I mean, you use software all the time and that pricing can go up. the subscription comes around and you get charged for it, and sometimes you don't even look at it. And yes, you should be tracking, is this worth it for my business to be investing $200 a year for that product? Or is there a way that I can put that somewhere else? So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What advice would you have for business owners who feel sort of stuck in that cycle of sales anxiety? Because it is not a comfortable thing to do, but it's necessary.
Yes, absolutely. It is necessary. And this is the same thing when you are, wanting to build any kind of muscle, that it takes practice and it takes time. And this is something that I tell my clients all the time. It really takes 10 seconds of courage, 10 seconds of courage to talk about your product. And even if at the end of that 10 seconds, you feel like you bombed and you feel like it was the worst, like 10 seconds ever, what did you lose? What did you
You
lose?
live, you're living. Like
Right,
I would always say to people, like, you're not gonna die. It feels super uncomfortable,
right,
but I always find when we're uncomfortable in our business, that's usually when the most growth happens in
right.
us as people, but also for our business.
And I want you to think about the last time that you went to the gym and you did something new. You maybe did a new workout class or just something that was very uncomfortable. And at the end of it, you're like, that was not fun, but I got through it. I'm sore. My muscles are sore, but you felt good after it. And maybe it was like, something you've never done before and you weren't that great at it, but you're like, I feel good after it because I built like my muscles are stronger. And I know if I keep on doing that, I am going to be better at it. My muscles are going to be stronger. I'm going to be healthier. It is the same way with sales. Sales is a learned skill. If you had heard me when I first started out in sales, I did cold calling. Like my job
Oh,
was to
I
call.
smile and dial.
Literally, that's what my boss was telling me. My job was to call people, that small businesses that had just bought a computer 2 weeks before, and to sell them a printer or ink or a keyboard or a monitor. And I had to learn very quickly how to do that. I flopped so many times, but it was like, you know what? Pick yourself back up. And every time that I did that, I learned something new. I learned how to tweak how I said something. And then I started to realize, if I say it this way, it is resonating with my customer. And so
Yes.
if you are feeling that sales anxiety, that repetition really does help. And it takes 10 seconds of courage, but it really is a mindset shift that when you have something valuable that brings value to others, you owe it to them to share it with them. And you will start to see them want to hand over money because they want your product, they want your service.
Yeah. And I will also say too, especially on cold calling, right? They give you a script, like all the things. But what helped me and what I always like taught in terms of that is have a conversation. Stop thinking about that sales piece and just have a human to human conversation. What you have
Yeah.
to offer is good, or you shouldn't be working there. Like, if you don't believe in what you're selling, then you change what you're selling,
Yeah.
because you're never going to be successful.
And it's funny, as a sales manager, and my times as sales managers, I struggled with delivering or like training my people with scripts, like the actual verbiage, because what I wanted them to do is, here's the points that I want you to hit.
The bullet points. Yes.
Yeah, but
Yes.
to your point, I want you to have a conversation. And I hear a lot of people will say, "Oh, but I'm an introvert. I'm not." And I'm like, listen, some of the best salespeople that I've ever met are the biggest introverts.
Yes.
Be who God made you to be. If you're an introvert, that's fine. But just connect with people and be yourself. Be yourself, and people will see that. People will see that.
Yeah. For sure. That's the only thing that I did to make me successful versus not when I first started was that mindset of having a conversation versus selling someone. I
Yeah.
didn't want to feel like a car salesman, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
what we imagine that is. Okay, this one is really, really important. And I believe it's the difference of your business growing and not growing. How does the art of follow up differentiate successful sellers from the rest?
So here's a statistic that I think is so interesting, and most people don't realize this. 90% of people will never follow up after they send a first email. 90%. So automatically, if you take the time to follow up, you are setting yourself in the top 10%. Top 10%. Now,
Already, like, that just by following up, like, that's a
yes,
tiny little thing for a huge reward.
absolutely. So I'm going to take this a step further. And probably a lot of people have heard this statistic, but it takes the average consumer seeing a brand 7 times before they will even consider making a purchase. So you follow up once, you're already in the top 10%. So you think about that. And I'm not saying that you need to follow up 7+ times, but the art of following up increases your likelihood of conversion or getting an order, making that sale significantly because your competition is more than likely not doing it. Not doing
I
it.
would say even probably with the 90%
Yeah.
statistic.
And nowadays you can automate that follow up and still do it in such a way that is providing value and is personable. You can even, hire a virtual assistant to help with that process. And it is still a very, personable and valuable process to the customer that doesn't have to feel icky or salesy. So there's lots of different ways to follow up. That's part of getting creative in the sales process.
As we're starting to wrap up our conversation, what are 3 things that have actually helped you grow your business? That could be tools, advice, really anything, but your top 3 things.
I love this question. So, one would be leaning into community and connecting with others. I tend to get shy away from the word solopreneur, even though, I mean, like as entrepreneurs, that's a common word, but we can't do this business alone. We need to lean on each other and learn from others. Second, being open to feedback, even when it's hard to hear. And I'll give you a specific example. I had someone that wanted to hire me. This was probably 6, 8 months ago as a sales consultant. I was just in a space in my life where I was moving 2 states away. And my response was, I didn't want to, give too many personal details, but she graciously gave me feedback about how I responded and still wants to work with me. It was just very, very kind. I'm a new entrepreneur, and I was just like, thank you for wanting to hire me. I can't do that right now. I had given her some tools, and she graciously said, "Do not give your tools away for free." And I was like, "Oh, I was trying." Once again, this goes back to my earlier
Learning
point of
lesson.
undervaluing my worth. She said, "Do not give your tools away for free. That's really valuable, and you should not have given those to me." And she said, "I would love to still work with you, once you get settled." It was just very, very kind. And yes, it was kind of like hard to hear, as a new entrepreneur, but it was just full of grace. And so being able to be open to learn from others that have had years of entrepreneurial experience before me has been very, very helpful. And then third, leaning into some of these countercultural ideas that especially I think in America are like everything's hustle, go, 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 but leaning into rest. And really this year I'm leaning into simplifying my business more, niching down in what I do well has really started to pay off. Rest is productivity. So those are really the 3 big things that I think I have really helped my business grow, and I would advise anyone to be open to and to learn from.
You're the first person that said rest. And I think 2025 for our world, specifically the United States, I think rest is something that we really need to start sort
Yeah.
of embracing a little bit more. So I agree with you on that. Tell everyone because somebody's been listening to you this whole time and they know that maybe they want to work on sales, like that's what they need to work on. What are your services? How can people work with you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So, I you can find me at andeehart.com, and it's my name is spelled a little bit differently. It's
And
ANDEEHART.
all the links and everything will be
Ye
down below in the show notes too for you.
Awesome. I really specialize in helping product makers sell their products to retailers. So get into wholesaling and getting their products on the shelves of retailers. You can find all of the information about my signature course on my website. I also have a membership that helps wholesalers grow their holistic business from a sales aspect. And then I have a free Facebook group that you can join too. So I will provide you with the link to my free Facebook group where I do some different sales and marketing trainings for product makers as well.
I love that. Tell everyone what your freebie is that you're offering to our audience.
So, the freebie is my ultimate list of sales tools. And so, whether you are a product maker or a service provider, this list of sales tools is going to be really helpful for you implementing in your business. These are all vetted by me, tools that I have either used or currently use in my business. And so, there is a link in the show notes that you can grab that list of my favorite sales tools for your business.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your valuable advice and your time today, because time is money. And if you out there listening or watching found some ideas and some tips that you can implement in your business, we would love for you to leave a review. Now go out there and do something good for your business, like snagging Andy's gift and then taking action. So don't just download it, but like actually read it, absorb it, and implement it into your business. Have a great day.